Hi guys, welcome to the latest podcast of YarninBlak. I'm first would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're calling in from. I'm here in Baldwin Q on the land of the Wurundjeri people. I'd like to pay respect to their elders past, present, and for the young people coming through who are going to be our future warriors that are going to take culture into the future. But today I've got a great special guest on. Kamarra, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having
Cool.
me.
No problem. Look, for people that don't know you, who are you, where you're from?
My name is Kamarra Bell-Wykes. I am a Yagera Butchulla woman from southeast Queensland, but obviously with mixed heritage of, I recently found out we've got a strong Celtic bloodline, which I imagine is connected to our sort of Welsh and English heritage on my father's side. And like everybody, a bunch of other bloodlines in there, South Sea Islander, and I've heard a bit of Māori. And I'm a theatre maker based in Naarm.
Yep. So you haven't always lived in Naarm. You said lived in Queensland. So where were you born?
I was born here in
Yeah.
Melbourne,
Okay.
in the Wurundjeri country, a long time ago. But at the age of 3 months old, because my mother was the first Aboriginal linguist, Jeannie Bell, respects to her, she's now passed. She graduated from Monash Uni, and then and she was pregnant with me in her last year. And so then once I was born and she finished her degree in linguistics, we moved up to Alice Springs and she was working at IAD. And so that's actually where my name comes from, Kamarra, or Kamara, how they say it up there. And then because of my mum and dad, who were just big gypsies, and I kind of just was dragged around with them, I went to sort of 17 different primary schools all over Australia. And I feel like in a way I kind of never put my roots down properly anywhere, but I have a connection to quite a lot of different places. Northern New South Wales, Queensland, Central down here, Darwin. I studied at Bachelor Institute up in Darwin. So I kind of have had a bit of a gypsy lifestyle, but in terms of my arts career,
Yeah.
Naarm, I guess, is the place that there's just a very strong black art scene down here, and I think you develop a connection to the place that you're born as well. So I've been back here for 10 years now after being up in the territory for 10 years. I've been back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you finished high school, you finished year 12.
Yeah, just, yep.
Yeah. So were you performing at school, or was it something that you wanted to do after school, or when did you start performing?
Well, I think a big part of me growing up in so many different places and going in so many different schools, I ended up becoming a little bit of a loner. Like I was always sort of around community meetings or just, there wouldn't be kids around or whatever. And I was quite shy too, to be honest. And I read a lot of books and I remember writing and making up stories a lot when I was a kid. And even like the games that I'd play, because we'd always be out bush, I wouldn't have TV. So I'd either be reading or like making up these kind of adventure games with my different dolls and teddies, like setting up different little stories. And I look back now and I'm like, oh, I was directing, like I was making versions of theatre back then and playing dress ups and that kind of stuff. But I actually performed in my first play in Alice Springs at the Araluen Arts Centre
Um,
that my dad actually helped to build. And so that was where I first performed. And I played a little Irish nanny. I was all of like 8 years old, made the front page of the paper. And then I did Contact Youth Arts in Brisbane, which actually has origins of Auntie Roxanne McDonald and Uncle
Yeah.
Leif Charleston kind of were connected in um, setting that up. And then I studied drama in high school. That was probably one of the few, like, yeah, I was sort of at a bit of a hit a bit of a rough patch in high school, but I still really enjoyed reading and writing. And I did drama, I did VCE drama, and got really high marks in that. But I was told I was discouraged from applying, strongly discouraged
Yeah.
into kind of pursuing that as a career. Like VCA was never sort of mentioned to me. And I applied to go to Monash just because I suppose that's where mum had gone, and I sort of had this romantic thing. And then I dropped out after 6 months. Like I just wasn't ready for uni. I didn't actually study uni until I was 27 up in Butchulla. I did my education degree up there. And then came back to Melbourne. And I've been working with YLBIJERRI. I did Stolen when I was quite young. I did a few professional gigs back in kind of the early 2000s, but then I had my babies and I got married and I moved to the Territory. And I've been back since like 2014 and just kind of been going pretty guns blazers since then, directing, acting, writing. Um, Education stuff. I sort of work across drama education, justice, education, drama. Yeah, so that's how you stay paid in the arts is do a thousand things.
Because I think the first time I saw you would have been, I think you were directing Chopped Liver, and
Oh yeah.
I was working at That Show at the time,
Yeah, right.
and
Yes.
you're in the That Show office, which wasn't where they are now. It was in that the tall long building.
Yes, yes. You're going back sometime. Yeah.
Yeah, going back. So I remember then actually going out and seeing it being performed, which I believe had Naz and was it Greg Fryer in it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And that was the later version because it was first done in like 2004 to like 2008. Chopped Liver toured across Australia
Yeah.
and I didn't direct that. I wrote that one. Rachel Mazza directed that and that had Isaac Drandich and Melody Reynolds and then later
Oh, yeah.
Nikki Ashby. And that toured for years. I just remember I'd always run into mob like if you know in the Northern Territory or anywhere random and if Chopped Liver was mentioned, people would be like, ah, I saw that show. And I just kind of spun me out because I didn't realize how many like they ended up doing over 1,000 performances of that show in different prisons and schools and communities. So, and then I think I that was the first show that I kind of the version that you saw was my first go at kind of directing. And I once I got a taste for that, I was like, oh, I really like this, probably because I'm a bit of a bossy control freak. Um, but yeah, and I realized, directing has made me a better writer and a better actor. And then going back to acting again recently, that makes me I'm a better director because I do acting at sort of, I think if you can understand all of those different roles, then you are better all around. Yeah.
And you also won the Gerda Nicholson Award, didn't you?
Yes, that was
One
a long
stage.
time ago. I've got it. Look, I can even see it sitting on my
And
dresser.
for Gerda, for people who don't know Gerda Nicholson, she was in Prisoner as the uh, uh, the person in charge of the prison. Um,
Yes, right. Yes. Look, shall I show you? Oh, look, this is when they were still green.
oh wow,
2003, that was. Yeah, for Stolen.
yeah. Was that your the first award? And what was it like winning that?
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise, really. I mean, Stolen, I wasn't in the original production, that kind
Yeah.
of was really sort of put black theatre on the map in a way, and that sort of was Pauline Wyman and Tammy Anderson and all of those kind of original performers. I did the version that was actually Rachel Maz's directorial debut, and it was on the VCE playlist. So we were performing to thousands and thousands and thousands of year 11 and 12 students across the state in the Merlin at the Malthouse. And then we did a big tour. And getting the award was a surprise, to be honest. Wasn't expecting it. At that point, I think I didn't really think that acting or the theatre could be a full-time job. Like I just, it was like, oh, this is cool. I like doing it. Oh, what you want to pay me? But there still wasn't the like, yeah, I guess I was still very young and wasn't really considering the possibilities, but also there was definitely not as much black theatre back then. Like there would be maybe one show a year nationally. Like what's happened in the last 10 years to the black sector is just completely blown up compared to what it used to be like. Mm.
Do you like being in front of the stage, behind the stage, writing, or you like the mixture of the whole lot?
I like all of it and I like mixing it up. I love collaborating. I think the thing about making theatre is that you are creating with other people. And I find writing quite torturous. Like sometimes you have to do it and do it on your own, but it's just so, and there's no one that can kind of do the work or fix the problems but you. I think the reason why I love directing is because it's like, if there's a problem, it has to have a practical solution. And I'm not the only person. Like, I've got all these people there that are kind of trying to come up with those solutions as well. So, and then like, but you're responsible for kind of everything, right? Like, and I think directing probably is the thing that I get off on the most. Performing's amazing, but it's also like, oh God, it's a lot of hard work. And you have really no control a lot of the time in terms of like you've got to be the body up there that performs all of these words and you're kind of you've got to keep the writer and the director happy and you're doing all of this stuff, but then you get very little input sometimes into what the character is saying. Like I find acting can be I was like recently doing a show. I really had to like learn to shut my mouth because I wasn't directing and it wasn't my job to make decisions about what the lighting states were or when people were entering and exiting. And it's like you just have to be able to be a body in the space sometimes. So they're very different roles. But yeah. But they're all fun for different reasons. They all have good things about them for different reasons. Mm.
So this year has been pretty full on. You've done Lazarus.
Yep.
Yep, you've done. I'm just trying to think.
Vigil.
Vigil, and what was the last thing you just did?
Lazarus was the last one.
That
I've
last
got
one did. Yep.
coming up at the end of the year is my Melbourne Theatre Company production, which I wrote and am directing, called Before I Forget. And it's a pretty big deal. It's my first kind of I've directed at MTC before. I
Yep.
worked on 37 there, but this is my kind of like leading this my key project and in terms of something that I've written and also it's based on my mum's experience with dementia, so it's a very personal story. So that's the sort of big one at the end of the year. Again, that's going to have Annie Roxanne McDonald, Melody Reynolds, Diara, Tiala Bullock, and Ned Valent as the
Ah,
actors.
yeah.
So yeah, look out. The tickets are on sale for that now. And right now, I'm just kind of dramaturging on other projects and working on my own scripts. I also work part-time with Queensland Theatre as the First Nations dramaturge. So I'll be going up there to do some creative developments. Yeah, yeah, good to be busy.
How do you keep every storyline in your head when you're working on so many different
Yeah. I don't know.
clients?
I don't know if it's because I read so much when I was a kid or something, but I just seem to have this really like innate instinct and understanding for story. Like I can just read something and get it and understand it and then sort of not like it just stays with me and I think about them and I process it. And I just kind of like sometimes when I read something, I'm just like, there's the answer. Like, here's the thing. But yes, it's a skill. When I find working on my own things, I can't have too many projects cooking at once, and I need to have focused time. But when I'm supporting someone else's story, my job really is just to ask questions and to provoke them. So I feel like I don't need to hold the storyline in my head. I just need to be present and responsive. So it's kind of different levels of investment. But yeah, you kind of start to figure out what your workflow is. And then like when I'm directing or I'm making a show, like when I'm in the room, I cannot think about anything else. I can't answer an email. I can't freaking go shopping. I can't like you just get all consumed by it. So that's why I can only do like a few productions a year because it just really like yeah, sucks up everything in your life.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
when I saw 37, I loved 37. and I love that style of storytelling. And then to go from that to like the one that you're doing at the end of the year, before I forget, is totally different. It's a very different storytelling. One's very male orientated, footy kind of place, and the other one is, without, people can find out more about it, but it's about someone who's losing towards the end of their life, and they're losing their stories, if that makes sense. Completely different materials, isn't it?
Yeah, they are, but I suppose, I mean, the funny thing is that even the show Before I Forget is still very, very funny.
Yes.
And like, at the end of the day, like this is why I feel like I can walk. It doesn't really matter what the story is. All stories kind of have their own lore and inbuilt kind of yeah, their own universe. And so what you're sort of responding to, one moment, my dogs are gonna start. Every time I do a Zoom, they want to growl in the background. It's tension seeking. Yeah, they're very different, but story by principle kind of fundamentally has the same, different, but the same kind of things that make it work or whatever. So that means you can work across projects, and it's like also very different to the work that I do with Carly Sheppard. A Daylight Connection is my other big
Yeah.
main kind of gig, and that show is like we call it, it's sort of colonial absurdism, like really ridiculous characters, very punk, radical, and so I think I love telling different types of stories, and different types of stories need to be told different ways. And I think, that's the joy of being a creative. It's like we have different music that we listen to for different moods,
Yeah.
right? Like when we're feeling sad or when we want to get pumped up, we listen to different types of music. And I find it's the same with telling stories. There are different stories for different occasions, and they all have different ways that they need to be told. And that's kind of my job, is to tap into the way the story wants to be told.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a question, because I've never really thought about this until you were saying something before. When you're creating your own stuff, then you get creative, you get directive control of everything. But when you remake something, well, not remake, when you actually are redirecting something that's been before, do you actually get watch the first production at all, or do you just think it in your head how you want it?
Mm. Um, yeah, I mean, Lazarus is a good example of that. Um, I mean, it depends. Like sometimes a remount is just a straight remount where it's like you don't have the time or the freedom or the money or whatever to make a new show. So you're literally just putting on the old show and re-rehearsing it, maybe with different actors or whatever. So that's a straight remount. If you're
Yeah.
doing like I don't actually know what the word is, but reimagining the work, which is what I did with Lazarus. I obviously read the script, and I watched some of the archive, but I didn't watch all of it. And I'm not sure why. I think I probably prefer not to be influenced by things that kind of exist before it, and I want to see what naturally kind of comes from my own thing. And like for example, with Lazarus, and I actually didn't make the decision to do this. It wasn't until I was doing auditions and I had the three different actors come in that there were different parts of each of them that I thought really embodied Uncle Larry. Um, and then yeah, it just circumstantial. And I wanted to hire all of them for different reasons, and I couldn't. And then it struck me that it was like, what if we had three different actors playing Uncle Larry? Because it is across his whole life story. And so having the boy, the man, and the elder, and then that just kind of really shifted what the show was. And so I often find when you find what that kind of key key magic thing is, or there's something that's in the work. And once you tap into that, then that kind of everything can kind of come from there. But yeah, I think I prefer not to be influenced by things. I mean, there's always useful information in looking at stuff. I'm very instinctual. Like I tend not to overthink stuff too much or try and plan or prep or have a preconceived idea. Like I just want to get in the room with the work and see what my natural responses are. Even when I read a script on the page, I only take in 50% of it. And it's not until I hear the actors reading it and I start moving stuff around on the floor, I'm like, oh, this is what it is. Oh, you know what I mean? And I love props. I love bringing things into the room. It's like when we're kids and we play dress ups,
Yeah.
like, what if we put this hat on? Or what about this? What about that?
Yeah.
And then there's all this other kind of discovery that you can make. Whereas if you just do it from your own brain, then all you've got is your own brain. And our own brains have lots of things in them, but there's so much information and discovery to be made out here. And I find that's really where like the fun, sweet, playful spot is.
How good are you going to watch other people's plays? Are you there to watch the entertainment of it, or are you there to critique it, or do you do a bit of both?
It's really hard, I find. Like, I really admire uh, my colleagues who are able to kind of switch their brains off and just really take in the work and are very generous audience members. I don't know what it is. I'm just such a critical thinker that unless a show is really amazing, and this is when I know that something's like really amazing, is when I stop thinking and I'm just taken away by the show and by the story. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do when I make work as
Yeah.
well. But often I find myself deconstructing lots of stuff, like the drama, because I do all of it. I kind of like, I'm thinking
Yeah.
about the dramaturgy, I'm thinking about the directing choices, I'm thinking, particularly if I'm, feeling like maybe the work isn't, has at its full potential, shall we
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
I listen, and to be honest, because I work with stories so much, and I'm terrible at this. I should go to way more shows. But when I get home to Faulkner with my dogs, I'm like, all I want to do is sit down and watch reality TV and not watch anything that's got a storyline or substance or characters. So that has become a little bit of a problem. I don't read for pleasure anymore because I read so many scripts. I find that I just don't, yeah. So that's kind of the downside of it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I just love going to the theater because I grew up a kid with trauma, right? Lots of trauma. And I think going to watch someone else's story, I can get involved in their story. There's a there's a conclusion.
Yes.
There's some drama. There's sometimes a song or a musical that goes with it.
Yeah.
And in the end, the package is all wrapped up at the end. And
Yeah, that's a really
I,
nice way of thinking about it.
I walk out feeling really, really good.
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, yeah.
And then being able to look at the morals of the story. What would the what was the moral of that? What was the It's a bit like the Dreamtime story. You can hear the Dreamtime story, but how does that change the way that I live? And what am I supposed to do with that new information?
Yes.
And that's what I get out of seeing any theatre shows. What have I learnt, or what is it? How does it change how I'm supposed to do working, live my life?
Yeah. No, that's a really great way of thinking about it. Yeah, absolutely.
I ask you another question. Have you had a favourite theatre company, or not the company itself? I mean, a favourite theatre space to perform in?
Um,
Because you performed in lots of different places, right?
yeah. Yeah, no, I really like, I mean, the Beckett's a really beautiful space that I've been in quite a few times. And a lot of love for the production and kind of in-house crew at Malthouse. Performing in the Merlin is epic just because it's so big. We recently did a show last year at Northcote Town Hall at the Darabin
Oh,
Arts.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Bell
Um,
Street. You did that with Carly, didn't you?
yes, not the one on High Street, so not the
Oh,
big art centre, but the Northcote Town Hall as
yeah.
part of
Okay.
Fringe. So Carly and Alexis West, that was called the Block. That was a really awesome space to perform in because it's one of those old architectural buildings that doesn't actually feel like it's filled with colonial trauma, and it's quite a beautiful building, and it's got these really old classic gold curtains, which we sort of used in the opening of the show. But yeah, all spaces have different feels to them. And I think one of the reasons why I'm such a rigorous theatre maker now as well is because I started off making work to be performed in like prisons and community halls. And so it means that you could probably, like you don't have the lighting design. People are just walking around talking. Like the show has to be able to kind of reach the audience above all of the sort of noise that it's competing with in that space. So the show has to be really good, and not be relying on kind of design magic. And so now that I get to actually add, lighting and AV or original scores, it's like, oh wow, but I think that really sort of taught me skills and humbled me quite a bit as well, because I've really kind of worked a lot to
Yeah.
get to the position that I'm currently in now. It didn't happen overnight, that's for damn sure. And I still feel like to an extent that, there's a bit of a glass ceiling within the Australian theatre sector, and sometimes
Yeah.
it can be kind of hard to feel like you could get an opportunity to be let into onto the big stages and into the kind of the big clubs of where the sort of elite theatre makers are. And I don't consider myself an elite theatre maker, but also, I think diversity in theatre is one of the strengths in Australia. And I hope that that continues. We've had a really kind of beautiful golden era over the last 10 to 15 years. I hope that that stays. I've heard some things that feels like maybe we could be in a little bit of trouble over the next few years, but we'll see what happens. We've survived things before.
Yeah. Did you have any role models growing up in the theatre? And I'll ask you a second part of that question is there any young people coming through that we should be watching out for?
Mm. Well, I think one of the first theatre performances I saw was John Harding's Up the Road. And I remember that having a really profound, like, I just still remember parts of that show to this day. Like, I can still remember sitting in that, like, and I was only young. I was like 8 or something, maybe not, around that age. And then, John knows my mum. My dad actually helped build the set on that work as well.
Yeah.
So, Johnny's always been a massive inspiration, and he's just such a massive support, and he's one of the OGs. And I think that he's always maintained that sense of black self-determination and inclusivity within the black theatre space that sometimes I feel like mob can forget as they kind of get higher up in the ranks, that sometimes that sort of grassroots, or what we're really doing this for, it all becomes all about the product and not about the art and community, which at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, that to me is what is at the heart of why we tell stories and why we make these ceremonies on stage. So yeah, John Harding's been is a massive inspiration. And obviously I've learned a lot from people like Rachel Mazur, and John Romrell was one of my old dramaturgs as well. So, and Carly Sheppard is, I can't say enough about what a phenomenally talented writer, dancer, singer, actor, every goddamn thing that she does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can
she's
she not do
phenomenal.
anything?
She's pretty amazing. Um, so yeah, and in terms of upcoming young people, look, I think this generation kind of underneath me and beyond, I think that was one of the reasons why A Daylight Connection, because the work that Carly and I make together really kind of smashes the definition of what Black theatre has kind of expected to be. And what we weren't, we would did that because we just felt like we weren't seeing shows that kind of represented our experience as diaspora, and of the generation. I don't know what we are, Generation X or something. It felt like we were just kind of like, where's the work that, so we just were making work that we wanted to go and see and that felt true to us. And there was quite a bit of resistance to that to begin with, and or it being seen as controversial and outrageous and oh my God, what is that? But then, like the young people and particularly young theatre makers, white and black, were just like, oh my God, what is this? This is the best. Like, and we just suddenly found all these young people reaching out to us and wanting to work with us and coming to hang out in our rehearsal rooms because I think we gave permission for young people to make theatre their way and tell their stories their way, that you don't need to be kind of dictated to by what the generations before have done. And yes, you always want to kind of pay respect and have that hindsight and awareness of the stories that have been told, but ultimately we should also be pushing forward and walking that unbeaten path. And that's what makes performance exciting, is when it's something that you don't expect, it's new, it's fresh, you're bringing something different into the space. So I'm so excited about what all of these young ones are doing. Like there are so many great young people. Maggie Church-Copper's got a show at Yirramboi next year. Corey Saylor Brunt School, all of like the young drag mob are
Yeah.
just incredible with what they're doing. Stone Motherless Cold has got, I think, a night happening tomorrow night in Kensington, which I think I'll go and check
Yeah.
out. So they're really just like making their own spaces. And I feel like that's what you have to do. The platform is rarely handed to you. And so a lot of it is just trying to create a bit of platform for yourself where you have the right to be able to kind of perform your stories and do things your way. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just watching the time. My final question I've got for you
Mhm.
is, what would you like people to walk away with from our yarn this morning?
I guess just to be your weird be your weird self. I think one of the things I've always, I struggle with conformity, and we think we need to fit into what other people's versions of kind of excellence and success are, and what people's bars or standards are. And I just think that we can never achieve other people's versions of success, so that we just, particularly in this day and age, more than ever, I think now is the time to just be yourself and follow your own truth and purpose and trust that the spirit and ancestors have a path that's just for you if you can kind of let go and give into it.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. Hey, I want to say thank you for hanging out with me. We'll do some advertisement on the YouTube channel about before I forget,
Oh,
because
great.
I really think that people would actually really love it. And
Yeah.
the cast is fantastic. I've seen them all in other productions. Melody is amazing.
Yeah.
Um,
And Auntie Roxanne actually knew my mum and used to make theatre with my cousin up in Brisbane. Melody's one of my best friends and kind of witnessed all of the stuff that I went through with my mother as well. And like the show's really funny. I'm really proud of it. I don't normally like kind of, I was, oh, I don't know if it's any good, but I'm like, I know that this is going to be a really incredible show. So I hope people come along and see it.
yeah, cool. So I want to say thank you. And guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next podcast. Thanks, Kamara.
No worries. Thank you.